All right, we're about to play that video for you guys.
You know what? I wasn't going to say anything. But I decided I want you to feel as uncomfortable as I do. And I want you to know that I saw your text messages and I think you're disgusting.
What text message?
You know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not going to repeat it because everybody doesn't need to know, but I want you to know that I know. I saw you and I think that you're disgusting. You don't have anything to say to that, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. And speaking of, you should. And speaking of airlines weeding people out, maybe if they raise prices, maybe you wouldn't be able to afford to sit with your family. That way they don't have to sit next to black people. Okay? Yeah. No, yeah, you don't have to be sorry to me. You're sorry because I saw it. But I want you to feel as uncomfortable as I do sitting next to you.
Okay, I am.
You should be.
Yeah, so I want to give a little bit of context. This kind
Was
of
that Spirit?
Okay. I'm pretty sure.
Frontier? That was no. Okay.
if he couldn't afford to sit with his family, I doubt it was.
Yeah.
So context a little bit for that one. This video went viral on TikTok, and I'm really proud of how she handled the situation. She had looked over. She was sitting next to an old man. You know, they got their print all big on the phone. Everybody can read it from a mile away. And she looked over and he said something about having to sit next to a big black lady or something. And I was actually talking about this with somebody the other day. I feel like so many people we're conditioned to mind your business, stay in your lane. But in a lot of times, you need to step in. There are so many situations where I think people would benefit from someone stepping in. And I really like that she didn't just accept his apology either.
I like when you brought it to my attention, why I said put it up there, because you don't have a right to insult someone. You know, hey, if you felt uncomfortable, I mean, what about her? He didn't just have something to say about her being her weight and her being an African American. It was also her weight. And I just think it's time for us to stop shaming people. And it really is a reflection of how he sees himself, not her.
That's honestly, it's a very tricky line. Reason being, it's his personal phone, right? And although she saw it, it's still in his phone, and he didn't verbally say it out loud. So it's really, really hard. You know what I mean? That's I always tell people, pick and choose your battles. I'm A-okay with it. So if I see somebody over there getting jumped, I get to choose if I'm gonna go over there. Yeah, if I'm engaged or not, right? Because that automatically makes me a part of the situation. You know what I mean? So in her defense, I think I would say in her emotional defense.
Yes, because you're right.
Yeah, it's her emotional defense, because he didn't physically say anything. It was on his phone, and she just so happened to see it. She made the choice to do it. I'm glad that she stayed recorded. Calm. Yeah, she stayed calm and she didn't act, and I hate to say typical, but you know what I'm saying, act a fool. You know what I'm saying? She didn't, and she did it in a way that where the world can see what's going on. She, it was recorded. I think she did the best thing. But the hard part is that it's still in his phone. And if she wants to
like invasion or something,
slightly, you know what I mean? So it's a real tricky line.
Can I add something real quick?
Sure.
Now we're talking about earlier, as staying in your lane kind of thing, right? Well, I was driving around Houston recently and I remembered lanes merge. So stay in your lane, but sometimes the lanes just have to come together.
Yeah. That was deep. I like that, Aaron.
That was really good.
That was deep.
But that's on purpose, though, right? The lanes merge on purpose. It's intended. At a certain point in time, it's okay, that lane is over. Now it's time for you to cross into this lane.
But I can't go ahead.
Sorry, because even then it's sometimes you got the lanes that's they merge into the one, but then you also have the lanes where the road's 8 lanes long, and then it's you know what, you're on the same road too. So it's that's a type of merge.
But I think for me, the reason why I felt it necessary, to put it up and I said go forward with it, is because again, yes, it was on his phone. My opinion, it was on his phone, but it was still insulting someone that's sitting right next to you. And you were a coward. If you felt that way, why didn't you voice it?
Oh, he would never. That's why he kept on his phone.
Especially on a plane, you're close.
If I'm understanding this properly, he was texting his wife on his
we don't know.
phone.
I don't know who he was texting.
I think he was texting
you
his
don't
wife.
know. That's what you want to say.
No, I know the story.
How you
He
know?
was texting his wife. His son was sitting next to him. About his son couldn't sit with them, and he couldn't say it. He didn't want to say it verbally, so he texted to his wife. You know how people sit next to each other, just constantly text. You go to any restaurant today, you'll see people couples that are
Yeah.
sitting there just texting instead of communicating with one another. And so that's what happened. Their son was sitting back with someone else, and they was texting about a Joey or whatever his name may be. They couldn't sit with us.
But that's their fault. They should have bought tickets for them to sit together and purchase the seat.
Well, so that's the challenge that I agree with Ricky, and I also agree with pieces of what everyone is saying. The challenge with flying, my wife and I, we fly a lot, and depending on which airline we use, we typically tend to stick with Southwest or United. United, you choose your seat. Southwest, first come first serve type of situation. So I prefer United. United Club, shout out to United Club members. Going like first class if we're going somewhere on a longer trip, or I prefer that. Not knocking Southwest or anything like that, but it just becomes challenging. We just came from Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a similar interaction where there was a woman who was a little bit larger, and because the seats are not assigned, she had to try and figure out where she was going to sit with her daughter who was on the flight with her. Now, I don't know how I would have reacted if I was flying alone, because I like to sit on the aisle because it gives me more space. I understand wanting to sit next to your significant other on the flight. But if you notice now, when you have like an in-flight movie, it tells you to be mindful of who is around you because you may be watching something that is offensive to them. Now, I respect that from the airlines, but I also don't understand is why are you putting that content? Why is that even accessible?
Right.
Because you control what videos or movies or TV shows I can watch.
Right.
So if you're putting something that is, listed as mature or rated R,
Don't watch this movie that we put on there.
right. So now you're giving me access to this. So from her perspective, and I always am troubled when people record things like this and then post it, because my question is, what was your intent in the first place? Because if you wanted to have real impact, you could have had a meaningful conversation with the guy in that moment instead of, pulling, I saw what you did. Because I think that's just a little tough. It's tough.
I feel you.
So,
but I do think she called him out.
I don't have a problem with the call out. But to Ricky's point, if I'm texting, because my wife and I say this all the time, there are conversations that I can have with my wife in the privacy of our home that I don't have at Subway or at church. But I can have those conversations. I can say those things that may be even deemed inappropriate in certain spaces, but I can say that to my wife in the privacy of our home because she understands the context with what I'm saying. Yeah. And that's a safe space for me to say that. So that's where it is his phone.
Yeah.
He's
Let's
not
make a
posting
long
it on
story
Facebook.
short here.
Right. Like
what she did was very tasteful the way she did it. It was tactful. It wasn't attacking or anything of that nature. Way she handled herself, I was kind of proud of how she did it. Period. On that.